good to see ya. You can't hear it from here? Oh gosh, it sounds loud to me. How's this? All right. Well, so this is my slides might be a little bit funky, but we're gonna work through them anyway, like this, and see if they'll work. Is that the high sign? That's the high sign. Okay, so my name is Debra Lynn, and I'm this guy's daughter right here. Joe is my dad. My middle name is Joe, after him. So if you hear bad things about me, we're just gonna blame him and just decide that anything that's wrong with my personality came from being a Joe. Anyway, I know the title of this presentation, I think Marie called it What I'm Doing Now. Please don't believe that I just want to come and talk about myself, because that's not it. So actually, I think what you want me to talk about is my opera company, which I've just started. So as most of you probably know, I was the chorus director and voice teacher at Manchester University for 26 years. I started in the fall of '98, and my position was eliminated a couple of years ago. So May of 2024 was when my last semester ended. And so I was a little bit distraught and upset. Hi, Lois. when that happened, obviously, and I just wasn't sure what I was gonna do, because I didn't feel like I was ready to retire, most certainly. And so I thought, what else am I gonna do? I was only 60 years old. As you all know, there's a lot of stuff you can do after 60, and I had a lot more music I wanted to make. So I was approached by a person who was actually a former trustee of Manchester University and was concerned about what had happened and was frustrated about it. And she said, I'd like to help you with whatever you want to do next. And I thought, I don't know what she means by that. Like, do you want to pass out programs, or are you going to give me money, or what, you want to help me? I didn't know what she meant. So, and I'd never met her before, but she had heard of me because she was a trustee and she had followed what I was doing with the choir. And so she and I met a few days later, and I found out that she was talking about helping me with some finances, which was awesome. And I went to her with a list of about 6 things, and she said, I want to know the craziest, most insane idea you have. And I said, well, I'll go to the bottom of my list then, the thing that I expected not to bring up. And it was starting an opera company in Fort Wayne. I love opera. It's just one of my favorite genres in the world. And we can talk a little bit more about why that is. But she kind of looked at me a little bit strangely and said, well, I wasn't expecting you to say that. But as we talked, for about an hour and a half, we met at a coffee shop in Fort Wayne at like 7:30 in the morning, because that was when she wanted to meet. And if somebody's offering money, I'll go anywhere, anytime. So I drove to Fort Wayne, and I don't even drink coffee, but I sat there and had my water. And by the end, about 90 minutes later, I was sitting in my car in the parking lot thinking, oh my gosh, this is actually gonna happen. She got on board and she was very excited about it. And so since then I created an advisory committee of people from all over the world, about 9 people, opera singers, opera producers, business people who knew things that I didn't know, because all I had done was be a professor for the past 26 years. And so they helped me kind of get organized. I spent about a year just figuring out how this was all going to work, and starting some fundraising. And so now here we are, a little over a year later, and we're getting ready to have our first production in January. So that's pretty exciting. It's a little scary, but it's pretty exciting too. We decided to call it Opera Today. We thought about calling it Fort Wayne Opera or something like that, but I didn't want to just limit us to Fort Wayne. And I wanted to do something I wanted the title to reflect what our mission was. And so one of my goals that has always been true, even as a professor, was to bring opera to people who don't normally think they would like it. Warner Brothers cartoons, are great and I love them, but they have perpetuated a stereotype about opera that is not helpful. And so the Rabbit of Seville and What's Opera Doc, that is not really what opera is about. But that's a lot of people's idea in their head about what opera is. Or, Viking helmets and long braids and spears and a vibrato you can throw a moose through. And that doesn't really have to be opera. So I wanted something that reflected where I want to go with opera, and that is to keep it relevant, yes? And to do some new and exciting sort of out-of-the-box things. What if we do an opera in a roller rink and everybody's on wheels, right? Now, that would be a really different kind of audition, but, it's those kinds of ideas that I have in my head. Can we do an opera at a food pantry? Or at a library? Or in a garden? Yes? So that's what kind of stories can we tell? Can we tell stories about autism awareness? Can we tell stories about whatever is happening in the world now, not what was happening in 1724? So that's why I came up with Opera Today. So, and I don't know if you can tell on the logo, there's little paint splotches around the Today part, and that's the creative stuff. We're just gonna throw the spaghetti against the wall and see what sticks, right? So that's that kind of open-ended, no idea is too crazy to at least think about, yeah? So that's our logo. I'm gonna show you, hopefully it'll work, a little commercial that we have. It's really short, hopefully. Will you play? Oh, come on. What? Maybe if I go to, oh, darn. Okay. Yeah, that's the problem with this view, with not being able to show the actual slide. I'm going to try something fancy. Oh, wait, look here. Nope, that's not going to do it. Okay, hold on. Put this down. Whoops. Oh, okay. It's okay, I can use this. Okay. Stay, don't you roll off here. Oh. There, okay. So, let me see if I can bring up, is Chrome good? Usually. Okay. Come on, little thing. Let's go. Yes, we have a YouTube channel. Yes, allow. Thank you. Okay. Ha! Look at that. There we are. Hopefully this will work.
You think opera's all powdered wigs and Viking helmets? Not here. Opera Today is Fort Wayne's home for boundary-breaking performances, mixing traditional art with contemporary storytelling.
I want you to be bigger. It's not.
You think opera's all powdered wigs and Viking helmets? Not here. Opera Today is Fort Wayne's home for boundary-breaking performances, mixing traditional art with contemporary storytelling. We're fresh voices, wild ideas, and big emotions. We will wear the costumes. You'll wear whatever you want. We're all about creating entertaining operatic experiences through partnerships with fellow arts groups, public venues, and local talent. Bringing bold performances into unexpected spaces. Blending reinventions of the classics with newly commissioned operas. Opera Today aims to create work that speaks to life today. Opera is alive, it's evolving, and it just might surprise you. So leave your pearls at home. This is Opera Today.
Ta-da! Yay! So, yeah, okay, I want you to go away now. Skip ad, no, don't.
Ladies and gents, it has been 4 months and about 3,400 miles.
Be quiet, mister. You're not part of my show. Okay. So that's our little ad that we had made. And I really want to minimize this. Here we go. It doesn't believe me. I'm pushing the button. There we go. Okay. All right. Now, can we get back to this guy? Yes. Okay. So here are, actually, did you pass those things out? Awesome. So Al is going to help me. He's my hands in the classroom. This is a little brochure that talks about the opera company and what we do. And our mission statement is on the front. Yeah, some of you might have gotten some in the mail. But if not, this kind of tells what we're hoping to do. That's a little bit different from other professional opera companies. So, and some of the really important words that I definitely wanted in our mission statement are these: that we would be a creative hub. Fort Wayne is surrounded by some of the best music conservatories in the world, right? Cincinnati Conservatory, Northwestern, Roosevelt, Ann Arbor, Michigan, IU Bloomington is churning out all kinds of great opera singers. Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, there's all kinds of, we are right in the middle of all that. And what do those people do when they finish their degrees in opera? They can go to Chicago. There are 2 opera companies in Chicago. But otherwise, and there is a semi-professional opera company in Indianapolis, but they are only doing 2 productions a year, so they're not employing that many people. Most people think they have to go to New York or Los Angeles for a career. So I want to create a place where we can keep that talent right here, instead of them spreading away from us. So Creative Hub, that's us, right in the middle of this big wheel of talent that we're creating. I want to do some innovative things with opera. I'll talk to you a little bit more about that as we go through. Opera is a storytelling device. It's telling stories of our time. It's telling historical stories. There's an opera called Nixon in China. And it's an amazing opera, and it's all about, Nixon opening that wall and going to China. You all remember that, right? But there are people a lot younger than us that don't know anything about it. So they can learn about that through opera, yeah? There is a recent opera about the Central Park Five. If you know about those guys that were wrongly arrested. And so that's an opera now. So there's some really interesting things out there that opera can help us learn. And opera has also traditionally, even in Mozart's day, opera was telling stories about social constructs. So before Mozart, opera was for the royalty, the kings and the queens and the emperors. And they would show up, and so all of the operas were about Greek and Roman mythology, because that's how the royalty saw themselves in those days. They wanted to believe that they could be elevated to this same godlike status. So Handel and Purcell, they're all writing about these, ethereal figures that don't really exist. Mozart came along and wrote operas where the kings and the queens and the emperors were the antagonists, and the protagonists, the sympathetic characters, were the servants. They were the smart ones. And so he kind of flipped opera on its head, and suddenly opera has social commentary. And so it's remained that way. It's an interesting little vehicle for just sort of perpetuating some conversations, getting people to think about important things. Recently, if you know the story of Dead Man Walking, if you've seen that film, that's an opera. So we're continuing that tradition. So that's important. The storytelling part, it's not just fairy tales. There's some important messages going out there. Collaboration. I am a huge collaborator. I love to work with other groups, and it's really good for us to do that, especially after the pandemic. We all isolated ourselves. We weren't collaborating because we couldn't. So, and I believe that it's made it easier for us to be distant and unempathetic with each other, and even a little bit hostile. It's like suddenly it's okay to say things to people that you wouldn't normally have said. Your mother would have smacked your hand if you'd said that, And so collaboration helps build bridges and helps us empathize with other people. So collaboration is always good. So that's something that opera can do. We have some bold artistic visions, some really interesting projects that we want to do. Inclusive engagement. Our tagline is, leave your pearls at home. That's our company tagline. So I always dress like this when I talk about opera today. I always make sure I have sneakers on and something a little more casual, because you can wear your pearls if you want to, but you can also show up in shorts and a t-shirt. I don't care how you're dressed, just come see the show, right? So we want to make sure everybody feels welcome. And then also just being able to transform people's ideas about what art can be, what music can be, what singing can be, what storytelling can be. And then trying to captivate you, right? The minute you walk in the door, this is an event, yeah? So, so that you don't even want to touch your phone. I'm just going to leave that in the car because I'm going to the opera. I'm going to be too busy to even look. So those are some of our goals. Opera is for everybody, yeah? I truly believe that. I'm sort of an opera evangelist. And I think it's because it's such an all-encompassing art form. It's visual, it's auditory, and when you're sitting in a live performance, it's physics, right? There are actual vibrations happening. Those sound waves are gonna hit you. So you can actually feel it when you're sitting. Depends on what row you're on, but you can feel what's happening. You can feel the energy in the room. It's very different from listening to a recording or watching a film on TV. So we want to help everybody experience that. It's really important to us. We want to make opera really relevant. So you can see some examples up here Over here on the right, this woman has a cell phone. These are all operas that I've produced. And so that opera is by Giacomo Puccini. Did Giacomo Puccini know what a cell phone was? No. But I stuck some in that opera because it makes it more relevant, yes? The middle picture is from a production I did of The Merry Widow, which has amazing music that everybody should hear. But in this day and age, some of the lyrics are a little bit, I don't think so. Like there's a whole song called Girls, Girls, Girls. I'm not really crazy about that, right? So it's quite misogynistic. So I thought, how can I present this so that we can sort of laugh about it? Well, if Groucho Marx is singing Girls, 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 we understand that, and we understand that that's funny, yes? So there are my Marx brothers. I had to create roles for Zeppo and Harpo and Chico, but I did, and it was easy to do. Yeah, and Franz Lehár, the composer, he's dead, he doesn't care. So, but I have a feeling he would have liked that production. So I made my leading man Groucho Marx, and Margaret Dumont was the leading lady, she was the widow, and it worked perfectly, and it was very funny. And then the one over on the left there, you can see the crime scene tape, right? So that's another thing where, it's a modern prop. It's not something you would have seen in Puccini's day, but we can just wrap some crime scene tape around something and it becomes modern. It's something we recognize. So those are just some of the innovative things that we can do. Community engagement. We want to get into schools, libraries, parks, the zoo, art galleries. I really want to do a Midsummer Night's Dream at the Botanical Gardens in Fort Wayne. Can you just imagine dancers, just little wood sprites running around in the plants? So those are some of the fun ideas that we have. But also things like food pantries, homeless shelters. Can we take opera for free, present it for free, not all the time, but in some instances, can we take it outside the usual opera house? And I think we can. I'm going to save that for later. That's another video. Representation is really important on stage. We all need to see people in films, in anything, in politics, in commercials, in television shows, in operas, in musicals. We need to see people that look like us. And so opera has long been an art form created by dead white guys. And so we need to make sure that we're representing everybody. And so we're going to make an effort to not just racially diverse things, but there's an opera by a Native American that I want to do that is about Native American culture. It's not done very often. It's a really good opera, but people don't know about it because this poor guy can't get all the dead white guys out of his way, right? Things about age, right? There are some really good operas about aging. And, making sure that we don't just have 25-year-old people on our stage, but that we're also getting some really fine singers who are my age or older, yeah? Get them up there. So lots of different things. Gender's been a funny thing in opera for a long time. There have been mezzos playing little boys for a long time. So that's not really that new, but it is something that we want to be aware of. Oh, and ability, yes? So I have a dream, as I said, of doing a whole opera on wheels. What if we create a world where everybody's on wheels? Not wheelchairs necessarily, there can be wheelchairs, but somebody's in a shopping cart, somebody's on a unicycle, somebody's on, right? And we don't even say this is on wheels. It's just this is what this world looks like. But what would that mean to people who are in wheelchairs, right? It would be really cool for them to just, oh, this is normal, yeah? So things like that are really important. We also want to create employment opportunities. So don't think of opera as just singers. We need orchestra pit musicians. We need people to hang projectors. We need electricians. We need set designers. We need costumers, people who sew. Yeah, there's a lot of employment opportunities in opera because it encompasses so much stuff. And then also another layer is training program for young singers. That's something else that we want to do that not all opera companies do. So we are about to become a company in residence at PFW. They've just invited us to do that, which is very exciting. So we'll be doing some master classes with their students and allowing them to come sit in on our rehearsals. I've got 5 or 6 of their students already planning to sing in my chorus. So there are some really cool ways that we can collaborate with younger artists and educational programs. Okay, this is the fast version. So I have kind of a 3-layer approach. We want to do 3 or 4 main stage productions a year, which are operas the way you imagine them, big stage things. And then this year we're going to do A Mall in the Night Visitors. How many of you know that one? Yes. It's an old favorite. It's a charming production. And then we're also going to do Pirates of Penzance by Gilbert and Sullivan. And then there's another opera we're going to do that's called Elizabeth Cree. It's a little chamber opera, and it's like a murder trial mystery thing. And so everything's in English this year. We're going to break the Fort Wayne audiences in slowly. Next year we're going to give them some Italian and probably some French, but we'll always have super titles, you know, so everybody can see a translation right there. So that's one layer. Community engagement is another one. That's where we're going into the schools and the libraries and all that stuff. And then these education training programs. We eventually want to have a summer training program that's 3 weeks. Students will pay tuition to come, but we'll do some productions that way that will just be with students performing. So, but always doing education. I'm a perpetual educator. I can't help myself. So I'm going to be teaching no matter what I do. So our big challenges are those darn opera stereotypes, right? The Rabbit of Seville. We can laugh at that, but we don't need to believe that that's truth. So how can we help people understand that that's not really what opera is? Opera is much more. And then, of course, funding is a big thing. A main stage opera production, a single one, is about $80,000 to $100,000. Right, but that's another thing that I am adamant about. I am not willing to do this if I cannot pay people well. I'm not going to ask somebody to sit down there and saw away on their cello and offer them a cinnamon roll, right? No, they deserve to be paid well because they've spent years building a skill and learning to do this thing, yes? So they're devoting time and energy, and it's a highly specialized thing. So, and we want to employ construction workers to build our set and all that kind of stuff. So that's where the expense goes up. If you've got 30 people in the orchestra, 30 people in the chorus, plus singers coming in from all over the world, right? It does rack up some money. I'm not paying myself, by the way, just so that you know. I refuse to pay myself until I can pay everybody else. So that's where my heart is, yeah? My husband's not very happy about it, but that's where it is. So, yeah, questions? Anybody? We have a beautiful website that is in your brochure. You can go there. We have a newsletter you can sign up for. We also have a donate button. If you want to help me eventually pay myself and my friends that are in the opera, we would love that as well. But I'm happy to answer questions if anybody has one.
What kind of chatter, what are you hearing from people in the community or the state or even people in the world that you talk with?
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. A lot of people believe that classical music is dying. And because I'm also conductor of the Manchester Symphony Orchestra, so because I'm doing these two things, it's really important for me to stay abreast of what is happening in the world. And it's going to take a while to get here, because a lot of the things that you read about are actually happening on the coasts or in Europe. But now that we have streaming services, right, Spotify and Apple Music and all that stuff, they are actually tracking things like a lot of demographic information, what age groups are listening to what music, and what economic status you're in and what you're listening to and what you're purchasing online. And amazingly, classical music, about, I think, 30 to 35% of classical music listeners are between 20 and 40 years old. Yeah, and that's fairly new. That's just been in about the last 5 or 6 years. Again, I believe part of it is because of the pandemic. People were so stressed out, and classical music is usually more relaxing. Nobody wanted to listen to punk rock when they were already worried about their face mask and, you know, where their groceries were going to come from. But also, the popular music that's coming out now is not human generated. It's all computerized. People are making albums on their phone, for heaven's sake. So, you know, you can create a drum track and a guitar track and a bass track and all your backup vocals right there on your phone. And so live music is really interesting to people now. It's like, oh, so we want to see humans do these things. We don't want to listen to something computer generated. So that's my theory. But anyway, yes. So that's a good thing. People are excited about us. We're getting some thumbs up from a lot of people. And I do a lot of things where I stand out on the street during a festival with my booth and my, you know, giving away t-shirts and free tickets, and people walk by and I say, do you like opera? And they'll say no. And I'll say, have you seen an opera? No. Well, how do you know? So here, let me talk to you about, and then that just opens the door, and then they get interested. And then I offer them free tickets. So we get them in the door, and then they go, oh, wow, this is cool, hopefully. So, yeah. Yes, we are. Anybody else have a burning question? Yeah. I'll hang around. So, yeah, come to the opera in January is our first one.